In this episode of the PM Podcast, we will see how identifying your company as a project business can be a critical success factor for your organization.
Hello and welcome back to the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com. This is episode number 449 and I'm Cornelius Fichtner. Nice of you to stop by. What type of project are you currently working on? Is it an internal project where your own company pays for everything? Or is it an external company where an external customer pays your bills? If you are part of the second group, then your project falls into what we call project business. And now look at your company and all the projects that you deliver as a whole. Do you see mostly internal projects or external projects? Well, if your company's products and services are delivered to your clients through projects primarily, then your company is a project business. That means that the term project business is used to classify both individual projects and organizations as a whole. Both are project business. Confused? Well, we can help. Today we welcome Matt Mong and Henrik Lerkenfeld to look at the term project business from the perspective of a company. In our conversation, we define the term project business from that angle. We discuss the central characteristics of a project business, briefly talk about some challenges, and look at why productivity in project business is lagging behind other areas like manufacturing or retail. And since we are talking about project business today, allow me to remind you that I not only offer project management training for individuals, but also for corporations. So, if you are looking to provide project management training for your company, for your business, then please visit pm-podcast.com/corporate to see what I offer. Let's talk. And now, enjoy the interview. Hello, Henrik, and welcome to the Project Management Podcast.
Hello, Cornelius. Good to be here.
And also, hello, Matt. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, Matt, you are the VP Marketing and Communications of Adeaca, and Henrik is the Head of Product Development at Adeaca. Normally, we invite project managers directly from the field, and we talk about their challenges. And today, we have more the business side of a company here. What can our listeners expect to learn from our discussion today that will help them better understand project business?
I think our listeners will learn a lot about new ways to approach their business. We're going to talk a lot about project business as a term and how we define it and why it's important. It will really enable people to change their focus and hone in on what really matters to the company. You know, thinking bigger beyond just project management, but really thinking about the project business as a whole.
Right. And in that case, let's switch over to Henrik, because we want to start with the term project business itself. Henrik, how does Adeaca define what project business means?
Well, we kind of define it like let's call it a macro industry. It's like when you talk about manufacturing, distribution, and retail. Similarly, we feel that there should be a term, project business, which talks about all the sub-industries like construction, engineering, ETO, manufacturing, professional services, but a term that describes all of those kind of sub-industries. Just like manufacturing can be divided into a whole lot of sub-industries, we think it makes sense to have a similar concept for the 20-25% of companies in the world that are project businesses. And the reason we feel this is relevant is because all these different project industries, while they are different, they actually have much more in common than differences. And so we feel that term needs to be there so that we can identify them as a group having kind of similar requirements. Also, of course, we're not talking about a company that kind of runs the one-off project to, let's say, a shoe manufacturer that does an R&D project to kind of get to a new product line. That's not a project business. It really needs to be a company that generates, the lion's share of the revenue from projects. And also it followed from that these companies, project businesses, are kind of completely dependent on their ability to efficiently deliver projects to their customers.
Mm-hmm. And let's also look back to an interview that we had with Oliver Lehmann a couple of episodes ago here and look at the difference in definition. When I spoke with Oliver, we talked about project business from the perspective of the project manager. I am a project manager. I am managing a project for an external client. That client is paying me. That's why my project falls into the category of project business. But today we're looking at this from the organizational perspective, right? We are a company. Our main core business is to deliver projects to our clients. Therefore, we, the company, we are a project business. Did I distinguish that correctly?
I think that's pretty much spot on. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. So let's see what your personal interest is here in project business. So, Henrik, what is your personal interest in project business? What makes it important for you personally?
Ever since I've been working in the industry, working with software and consultancy and those kind of areas, I've always been working with project businesses. And I've had kind of the opportunity to work with a lot of different types of project businesses, including construction, engineering, and also professional services companies. And so from early on, I kind of noticed that even though the industry was different, it was kind of the similar challenge every time. I mean, they all kind of have these projects that need to manage. It doesn't really matter if they're building a bridge or if they're setting up a turnkey factory. Many of the challenges are exactly the same. And so I was working within the field for a number of years. And when I got the opportunity to join Adeaca and actually make solutions for project businesses, I jumped at the chance. And that's kind of what brought me here today.
Mm-hmm. And Matt, what is it for you?
Well, I mean, I've been here at Adeaca for about 3 years, and when we first got here, I think we were struggling with how to communicate what it is that we do and the benefits we provide, to the market, because we'll talk about this later, but what it is that we do and doesn't really exist in the market, and so we were struggling with that type of communication. What's our message? And we kind of stumbled upon this concept of project business and a new category of solutions called project business automation. And that, we presented that to our customers, and it just immediately clicked. Yeah, and we went out there and we found the term being used more and more, and the concept of project business was growing, and we just felt it was really good to get in on the ground floor of this, this movement around project business.
Mm. And Matt, frankly, your experience about, what is project business exactly, mirrors my experience as well. 3 years ago, if you had asked me what is project business, I wouldn't have known, because it was an emerging term, even though it's been around since about 2010, 2011, when one of the first papers came out about it. I've done the Project Management Podcast for 15 years now. This is only the second interview on the topic and the second interview in the same month. So it's almost an emerging area of project management of the business environment.
It is.
Henrik, back to you. What are some of the central characteristics or commonalities of a project business? Again, when we talk about a project business, that's the company that manages projects at the core of their business.
Yeah. And there are a lot. That's why the term project business is so relevant. So when you look at these project businesses, that they all obviously deliver projects, and they all have to manage their projects. That's obviously part of running a project business. And so a lot of the commonalities are around the specifics of projects. So for instance, they tend to be fairly complex, and quite unique. So in certain sub-industries of a project business, they're even one-off projects that you do once and never do them again. Regardless, they tend to be kind of high-risk endeavors. So, there's a lot of uncertainties in a project. The kind of the duration and the scale of the engagement is such that it's impossible to come up with an initial plan and stick to it. There's a lot of fluidity and disruptions in the plan. So you actually shouldn't think of this as planning and executing, but rather baselining, executing, and replanning, and doing that over and over again. So things like scope changes. So you start the project with a certain scope in mind and plan for it, and halfway along the way, that scope changes, and that will happen a number of times as well. There's the timeline as well of a project. It generally takes months and years rather than days and weeks. And so just the duration and again, the scale of the project is putting strains on organizations, because it's a lot to manage. And if you compare this to, again, a manufacturing company, for instance, that does a work order, it's often a fairly standardized product. It's done within a couple of days. So it's standard and it's quick, and it's a lot simpler from a control perspective, actually. So it's really the project business is a challenging one to manage. And that kind of requires a lot from also your system support. Where if you have to manage a business that is plagued by uncertainty and high risk and fluidity, you need really strong systems to support you in that process. And that is kind of the central challenge, regardless of what kind of project business it is. They all share kind of those kind of central characteristics of doing projects.
Allow me to go back to a number that I'm not quite sure if it was Matt or it was you that you said earlier. 20 to 25% of businesses are project business. Do I remember that correctly from earlier?
Yeah, I think that was me that put that one.
And could you tell us a little bit more about that particular number? Where do we know that number from? How?
Yeah, so I think actually I'm going to put Matt in this. I think I've got the number from him. So Matt, can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, sure. So it obviously is an estimate, but if you look at the different industries, how they're traditionally defined out there today, and you look at, say construction, engineering, you look at the manufacturing sector that's that is contract manufacturing or ETO manufacturing, and then you look at all the different professional services, whether it's architecture, engineering, management consulting. If you look at all those and the totality of that, it really adds up to 20 to 25% of all businesses are in that project business sector. So that's what we've done as far as just research that we've done in our company. Mm-hmm. Is we've gone in and looked at these industries and what they represent, at least in North America, as far as, revenue wise, what they're generating. And it does add up to about 25% of the market.
Right. And we're not saying they are 100% pure a project business, but a majority of the income, the revenue that the company generates, is done through project business.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Henrik, why is identifying as a project business critical for a company's success?
We feel that identifying as a project business is important because it places focus on kind of the common denominators across project industries. And what we sometimes see is that companies get maybe a bit too hung up on their uniqueness. So, for instance, if you're an infrastructure construction company, I'm sure there are certain project controls and processes that are very unique to your particular sub-industry. But really, this shouldn't be the driver when you try to optimize your business. What you really need to focus on is to how do you effectively run your core business, and your core business, regardless of what kind of project business you are, is to deliver projects. And so what we sometimes see, again, so we're a software and services company, and what we sometimes see when industry solutions, and when I say industry, I mean, for instance, a solution for infrastructure construction, they are very focused on these vertical differentiators, but they don't take care of the fundamentals. managing a timeline, a budget overrun, procurement activities. They don't take care of those. They only focus on the differentiators. And that's not really a good solution. So what we often see as well is that when these companies go into the market and looking for a business application to manage their solution, they're looking for a project accounting solution. And obviously that doesn't take care of the core business, but then they run everything else in point solutions. And so what you end up seeing is a billion-dollar company running a significant part of their business in Excel spreadsheets. And that's detrimental, especially when we consider the challenges of the industry with the high uncertainty and the need for transparency and effective mitigation. That does not tally with running your core business processes in Excel. And that's why we think that when you identify as a project business and begin to think of yourself in that way, then you set yourself up to get some meaningful improvements in the way you execute your business.
And how about productivity in project business? Is it lagging behind other industries like manufacturing or retail? Is it on par? Is it ahead? Where are we at?
So I think the general consensus is that there's a lag of productivity improvements in project industries overall. Now, obviously, there are anomalies. There are certain industries that might be doing quite well and others quite poorly. I don't really have the specific numbers offhand, but certainly the overwhelming feeling is that project industries are lagging in terms of improvements in productivity. And again, from our standpoint, we're a software provider, a technology provider, and we really feel that part of the explanation of this is that ERP as enterprise resource planning applications that was available to most industries in the 90s, right? Manufacturing companies and such. They previously or before ERP, a manufacturing company would use one solution for the inventory, one to plan the net requirements, one to do the sales order processing, another one to plan the production orders. They don't do that anymore. It's all integrated in a ERP platform that kind of takes care of their business. That never happened for project businesses. They've been underserved. They're still project businesses to a large extent is still operating in a pre-ERP world. They're still running their business in point solutions or best of breed solutions, whatever you want to call it. And very often, as I said before, in Excel spreadsheets. So I think that the lack of system support is a big factor in that kind of lagging productivity.
What are some of the challenges that a project business faces? And let's also say that we have a second interview planned where we're going to actually delve into the 7 major challenges of a project business. So that's coming up in the future. But right now, if you could give us sort of a high-level overview of what some of the challenges are.
Yeah. So if I should kind of highlight 3, I would say, first of all, there's a lack of governance. So there's a lack of the company way of doing things. And that's a direct result of doing or conducting your critical business processes in Excel sheets and point solutions. They're, generally speaking, not very well governed applications, and people can kind of do what they like. And so if you don't have corporate governance, it means you rely on individuals, and individuals decide how they're going to act in a certain scenario or how they're going to do the month-end process or do your EACs or whatever it might be. So lack of governance is certainly one. I would also say lack of automation is a big, big problem. Like I said before, the manufacturing company that kind of moves all these related business processes into a single system. So when a sales order is recorded, the net requirement system knows about it. It checks the availability on the inventory and it plans a production order. That kind of automation doesn't exist in the project business if you're running your business on point solutions, because if there's a change in your schedule, which is done in Primavera, then the procurement people don't know about it. The budget is unaffected, and there's no automation. There's no kind of flow of information from one process to another because of the silo boundaries that prevents that from happening. And I think the single most important problem in project business is lack of insight and lack of timely insight. So in a high-risk, volatile business environment, it's very important that you have insight so that you can, as quickly as possible, identify emerging issues before they become big problems, so you can do effective mitigation. But again, because of the way that processes are being executed in point solutions, you don't have that insight, and so you don't have that early detection that allows you to do effective mitigation.
And when I'm looking at these three, governance, automation, a lack of insight, these have come up again and again in interviews that I've done over the last 15 years. We don't have it, it's lacking, and whenever I talk to companies that offer some sort of a project management solution, they tell me, oh, we have governance, we have insights, we have dashboards. And I think maybe this is the moment when we do have to talk a little bit about Adeaca, your company, and see what the difference is there in terms of the philosophy of the service, the software that you offer here. So maybe, Matt, this might be more in your wheelhouse here. What exactly is it that Adeaca offers to its customers? And maybe also, how would that differ from, a project management solution? My company right now, we're a small business, and we're looking at a project management solution, an online solution, and they seem to be doing everything that I can. We're not a project business, but there are so many project management solutions out there. Why do I need something different if I identify as a project business?
Yeah, so great question. So I think the way that we look at it is that project management is obviously needed, and it's a required discipline, it's a required software that you need in order to run projects, but it really is a subset of what we've been talking about, a project business or running your project business. And what the problem is that typically the project management function has been outside of the project business, running your project business. So what Adeaca does is we bring all that project management functionality and all the including scheduling and planning, all the project financials and accounting, and then being able then to integrate all that into one system, end to end, and then be able to build on top of that all the project insight and analytics that you need to give you that real-time visibility into what's going on with your business. So that, so in a sense, we're bringing that all together, creating that end-to-end system, and then that is really just changes the way that people are able to run their company, and the automation and the governance that you have then is systemized and everything's taken into account, from start to finish.
You mentioned the people will be better able to run their company. That brings me to the target audience. We're really at this point, we're not talking about a service, about a software that is specific for the project managers who are actually out there with the customers and running these projects, delivering them on the ground. We're more talking about the business owners. We're talking the C-level executives, right? That's really the level where you come in.
Yeah, so exactly, but it's also it does include everyone in the company, right? So if you think of an it really is what we're doing is we're creating an ERP that works for these project businesses that they typically just have not had in the past. So that includes, it includes the C-level that, they're getting the insights and the information that they need to make decisions that are critical to the success of their company. But also, of course, then that stems from, the bottom up interactions and information and the data and the actions that project managers are doing in the system and all the other users along the way.
Okay. Let me go back to you, Henrik. When I first heard about agile project management, the methodology, everybody was talking about, in order to make this work, you have to adopt an agile mindset. To compare, there is a project business mindset as well. How have you noticed that project businesses improve and succeed based on adopting that project business mindset?
It's very true that project business mindset is important in the organization. And what happens is that you begin to think of not the project, not the schedule specifically, or your budget specifically, or any other kind of siloed component of project management. What you take a more holistic approach to the project business, and you see the projects within that frame. And so there's a number of things that we generally see. First of all, there's certainly tends to be an increased accountability among the stakeholders. And one of the reasons for that is that we move these stakeholders off the point solutions and into a consolidated business application. So there's becomes a lot of visibility into what every stakeholder does. And when, for instance, the scheduler or the planner, he makes a change in the project plan, that is immediately becoming visible on your budgets, on your reforecasts, to the procurement people. Likewise, if the production crew is rescheduling a shop order to be delayed, that is going to be flagged immediately to the planner, who then has perfect insight into what's happening in the shop floor. So that kind of visibility really breeds accountability for the stakeholders. We also see every single time a steep increase in reporting cadence. So where previously you might do, if you're lucky, you do your monthly reporting package. In many cases, you only do kind of project is finished report. So how did we do? So away from that and into really getting metrics out on a weekly or on a daily basis, so that you, as we talked about earlier, you detect things very quickly and you're able to mitigate much more efficiently. And also by that early detection, you can really reduce the disruptions in your business. The minute the PO from the vendor gets delayed, the planner knows and can begin to react to it. Another direct consequence of kind of the automation that comes with the project business mindset, the fact that information flows immediately between kind of processes that in the old world would be in different silos and not connected at all, but now they are. That means that you begin to execute your project controls much more frequently than you would previously do. Because if you need to do your reforecasting at the end of every week, and it takes you 3 hours to extract data and consolidate it in an Excel sheet and everything else before you can get started on the actual control, then you tend not to do it, or you do it once a month instead of once a day or once a week. So we very much see an uptake in project controls in terms of, again, the cadence of that and the frequency with which you do what you know you need to do as often as possible. But because you don't need all that manual intervention, you actually begin to do it much more frequently.
I'm very happy that you mentioned project controls, because I was going to jump onto that based on the first part of your answer a moment ago. When I originally started in project management, I was working for a management consulting company, and we were running project business. Definitely. We were selling our expertise, our projects externally. We had to account for every 15 minutes of work. So it was very important that we could bill, that we could invoice the customers accordingly. And in order for all of that to work, what you have just said, the controls, the being able to have automation and all that, everybody has to be really strict with their own time and put in the information. I have worked for 3 hours on this project so that the data actually gets collected at the front. Is that correct?
Sure, absolutely. And there are, as you probably know, there are, I don't know if I want to say hundreds, but there are a vast number of project controls around anything from your budgets to your timekeeping to your invoicing to your schedules and your utilization levels and everything else. But again, the problem is that even if you run a control in, let's say, in again, Primavera, that if you follow up on your project schedule as you're supposed to, if that follow-up, if that job you've just done never gets out of P6, it just sits there. And it never affects your financial outlook or whatever else it needs to affect. If it doesn't do anything, then what is really the purpose? Right? We've seen so many cases of people having this nice project plan and it's sitting there on the desktop. And once they've done it, they print it out and they put it on the wall and it sits there. They never change it again. It's not current. 2 weeks later, it's not current, but it's there, right? But unless you actually follow up on that plan and replan as you're supposed to, and unless that replanning somehow is kind of is pushed into other areas of your business and the effect of that is aligned to, then again, what's the point of running that control? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the product business mindset is, that what every stakeholder does is important and needs to be accounted for somewhere else in the business. There's very rarely something that just happens in complete isolation, right? And if it does, then you could argue, what's the point of doing it?
Do you happen to have an example from one of your customers where you helped them apply the mindset and go from, shall we say, a mediocre project business to a stellar project business?
Yeah, so one of the things that we see across the board is that when people get into this project business mindset and adopt the kind of proper business solution to support that mindset, is that they're able to move away from point solutions. And so a recent example is a US-based electrical engineering company that was able to scrap 12 point solutions by implementing our project business solution. And so these 12 point solutions that used to be required to kind of manage the business are now all incorporated and managed inside that single consolidated application. And of course, the mere fact that you don't have to maintain these point solutions anymore is a huge step forward in its own right. But another direct result of this is that increase in visibility. So the monthly reporting package that this company needs to do for management is now ready 1 full week earlier than it used to be, because there's no more manual data extraction, mapping, translation, consolidation, compilation. All that is no longer needed because all the business processes are managed within a single system, and therefore we can fairly easily draw those reporting packages without really any manual intervention.
Excellent. Thank you so much to both you, Matt and Henrik. To wrap our interview up here, can you please tell our listeners what you feel is the number one thing that you want them to take away from our conversation today? And maybe we'll start with you, Henrik.
So I think, first and foremost, you need to think of yourself as a project business rather than a construction or engineering, ETO manufacturer or service company. And consider what are the kind of the fundamentals of being a project business, because there are so many commonalities across project businesses that somehow gets overlooked. Like all project businesses needs to manage timeline and scopes and scope changes and budgets and progress and productivity and supply chain availability and utilization of resources, risks and issues. All that is something that is common across project businesses. And to identify as that and focus on those fundamentals rather than saying, my example before, I'm an infrastructure construction company. What is it I need? Because that is what I am. I think it's, you should consider that, but first consider what it means to be a project business, which is you need to be able to deliver projects in an effective manner.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Matt, from your side?
Well, I don't think I could say it any better than Henrik, but I totally agree. I mean, the first step to successfully moving your business forward is to recognize that the core of your business is projects. And think of it. I think if you compare yourself to, the other industries, retail, distribution, manufacturing, they're running their business in real time. If you're a retailer and something is bought in your store, that could automatically trigger a production order on the back end, right? That just doesn't happen in project business today, but it can for your business. And that's what we want to get across, is that, you can, if you think of yourself as a project business, you can start to think about the holistic part of that and what that means. And then you're going to be able to start to run your business in real time. And that's what, thinking about project business is all about. That's what project business automation is all about. So take care of that first, and it'll give you the foundation, for moving forward in the future.
Excellent. Matt, thank you so much for having been on the program today.
Thank you.
Also
Thank
Henrik.
you.
Yeah, thank you both for introducing us to the other side of the coin, where we talk about project business as the organization, the business that delivers project. I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Matt Mong is Project Business Evangelist and Henrik Lerkenfeld, Vice President of Product Development at Adeaca. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening. Please visit pm-podcast.com for show notes, links, transcripts, and PDU information. Our email address is info@pm-podcast.com. And finally, we have this wise saying: beware the time-driven project with an artificial deadline. Until next time.